Our focus remains on Iraq and the kind of effect that it could have on India and its neighborhood. The crisis in Iraq has intensified, with the rebels now seizing 3 large border crossings into Syria and Jordan. The jihadists have now got control over much of the western frontier in Iraq that could directly threaten the country's main power supply. Maruf Raza is now live with us. Maruf, what are the kind of threats that India should watch out for at this moment, considering that some participation in ISIS comes from Pakistan as well?
Well, to me, the most important factor is the instability that ISIS is going to create for the Arab world. As you all know, that the Arab world is the largest supplier of petroleum and related products to us. And also, there is a large Indian population that operates largely in the Gulf countries and that sends back huge remittances to India. But the ISIS currently is operating largely effectively in northern Iraq and parts of western Iraq, having come in with its track record for huge violence and very rough actions that it has undertaken in Syria, which has left even other militant groups quite surprised at the sheer ferocity of its acts. The ISIS is not Al-Qaeda. The ISIS is an organization that has been propped up by certain other Sunni Arab countries who wanted to add to factionalism in the conflict in Syria, and has carried the momentum forward in Iraq. It has been armed in the past by European countries and certain Gulf countries. It is also operating under the knowledge that America is unwilling to put boots on the ground, so it has a free run. Iraq in particular is a mess because the current Prime Minister, Mr. Maliki, who also holds the position of Defense and Interior Minister, has taken it upon himself to try and fight the campaign in a very disorganized way, has made the Iraqi army quite unprofessional by removing good officers and putting sycophants on top. So Iraqi army now doesn't have the stomach to fight the ISIS. And in all this chaos, the one gainer is this militia force, which can be ranging from 1,000 to 11,000. Nobody knows the exact number. It is made up of convicts, criminals, and guerrilla fighters, and they are basically targeting Iraq because they want to break up Iraq into 2 to 3 states. And that is something which will have long-term implications for India.
But Maruf, also the general feeling is that the ease with which ISIS could overrun Iraq is because of the mess that America left behind. With the American troop pullout from Afghanistan, do you think that Afghanistan could turn into another Iraq, with repercussions being felt in India as well?
Well, America actually left Iraq with a reasonably professional military force. The problem is what Mr. Maliki has gone and done. He has done away with the professional leadership of the armed forces and left it quite headless. And therefore, without a proper leadership, no army can fight. And that's what is being witnessed in Iraq. Afghanistan is a completely different kettle of fish. Afghanistan, at the best of times, has not been stable. Afghanistan, even now with America, is wanting to exit purely because they want a face-saving exit from Afghanistan, and the Americans and the Western countries have struck alliances with a whole lot of dubious organizations, including the Taliban. And therefore, in Afghanistan, the implications of the fallout will largely be for Pakistan and to some extent Iran. In the case of Iraq, the fallout would be felt for not just the neighboring countries such as Syria, Jordan and Iran is willing to intervene if required, but in the larger Arab world. And instability in the Arab world has consequences for India in terms of oil prices shooting up. Some are predicting that oil prices might soon be touching $140 a barrel. At the same time, Indian population that is working in the Arab countries would begin to feel insecure and would put pressure on the government of India to try and evacuate them. Right now, there is no need to panic. The nurses who are caught up out there and some other individuals who are caught up out there are in situations largely of their own initiative. The government of India had nothing to do with it. The government of India is doing the best it can. What the government of India can do in the immediate future is to encourage its Arab friends to form a coalition force which can help the Iraqi army stall the fall of Baghdad. That is the best the government of India can do in diplomatic terms. There is no question of military intervention. We don't have the strategic reach.
But going forward, how do you see the situation in Iraq developing from here on after initial feelers to the government of Iraq? In fact, even the Iraqi government had invited America to conduct airstrikes. Now, like you said, the US is not keen to put boots on the ground. Do you think that the Iraqi army will be, along with their own militias, be able to tackle the threat of ISIS? Already they've lost control over practically all of their western borders.
You see, armies all over the world operate with very defined terms of reference and very defined leadership criteria. You cannot, unlike political leadership that changes with elections or the drop of popularity of a government and you have a new political dispensation, you cannot have military leaders suddenly brought back into the army and turn the tide of battle. Even that, in short term, would take many, many months. What Iraq could possibly do is if Mr. Maliki has some good sense in him and he wants to remain in power, the first thing he could do would be try and put the Arab countries together in the form of a coalition force supported by the Arabs, because the United Nations, as history has shown, takes 4 to 6 months to put together a peacekeeping force to bring stability anywhere. That's too much time. We're talking of days and weeks now before Baghdad could possibly fall down. And so therefore, Mr. Maliki's short-term measures would be to put together a special force of certain friendly countries that would help them to stall the advance of the ISIS, carry out counter-guerrilla raids on them to give them shock action, put together some military leaders within Baghdad who were purged and maybe recall them back in national interest, and get an Arab coalition. India on its front neither can carry out airstrikes nor can take on military action out there, because the whole Arab world is not going to encourage India's intervention. We just have to be alert to the fallout of the situation, which will impact on oil prices.
All right, Maarouf, just stay on with us, because we're also getting stories of people who are in India who are trying to reach out to their loved ones who are stranded in Iraq. Families from across the country with their members in Iraq are worried for their safety. Naturally, 10 families from Bihar's Jehanabad allege that the passports of their kin who had gone to work in Iraq have been seized, and these families also allege that those stranded were not being allowed to return home and are currently not even traceable.
ये दो जिगरी दोस्त गए हुए हैं, एक का नाम मोहम्मद अरशद और एक का नाम मोहम्मद शाहिद है। ऐसे तो टोटल मेरे गांव से 9 आदमी गए हुए हैं, 2 ठो जिसमें मेरा अपना भाई है चचेरा, और उसके लिए हम परेशान हैं। जो जब यहाँ से गया था वो तो 1 साल का वीज़ा लगकर गया था और बोला था कि 1 साल के अंदर में हम चला देंगे, लेकिन जैसे यहाँ से वो गया वहाँ और उसका पासपोर्ट जब्त कर लिया गया, और जब्त करने के बाद 2 साल से ऊपर हो गया है और उसे ना तो वहाँ से भेज रहा है और ना उसे पासपोर्ट दे रहा है। सुबह सुबह उठा करके मारता भी है, और वहाँ इतना ज़्यादा बमबारी हो रहा है कि हम लोग पूरे परिवार चिंतित हैं। एमएलए साहब से और एमपी साहब से मिल चुके हैं, लेकिन अभी तक हमारे लिए कोई पहल नहीं हो पा रहा है।
काम के लिए वहाँ इसमें फैक्ट्री में गया है।
कहाँ?
इराक।
इराक के कौन से शहर?
अब शहर हमको ये मालूम नहीं, इराक में हम तो जानते हैं कि इराक में गया है। अब महल्ले का हमको नहीं पता है, 10 दिन से बात नहीं हुई है।
क्या लग रहा है आप लोग को?
हम लोग को क्या लगेगा, हम लोग को यही लग रहा है कि अपने लड़के को देख लें, मिल लें उससे।
एल्युमिनियम फैक्ट्री में।
कौन से शहर में?
बसरा, इराक बसरा कंपनी में।
तुमको यार कितने दिनों से बात नहीं हुई है अपने वो से?
कम 10 दिन से बातचीत नहीं हुई है। पहले बातचीत भी होती थी, अब कुछ बातचीत नहीं होती है। वहाँ का स्थिति बहुत ख़राब है।
क्या सरकार से क्या मांग करता है
कि हमारे अब्बूजान को भेज यहाँ ले आए, वापस इंडिया भेज दें।